Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. Former President Donald Trump and President-elect Donald Trump has announced his choice of Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, as his nominee for Commerce Secretary in his 2024 presidential campaign. Lutnick, known for rebuilding Cantor Fitzgerald after the 9/11 attacks, has been a longtime Trump ally and financial backer. Critics, however, question his lack of direct government experience and point to his reputation as a controversial figure on Wall Street. If confirmed, Lutnick is expected to lead trade negotiations and promote business-friendly policies with an emphasis on technology and manufacturing growth. For Xi Jinping, Chinese president, the main objective during two global summits was to push for a peaceful world with fewer trade barriers so he can focus on reviving China's economy. And that U.S. President-elect Donald Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin are disrupting those plans. Bloomberg reports that Xi urged German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to help resolve a tariff dispute with the European Union over electric vehicles, told French President Emmanuel Macron that China didn't want to see the war in Ukraine escalate, and he added that Beijing would continue to play a constructive role in its own way to end the conflict. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who had sought to improve ties, brought up concerns over human rights, Taiwan, and the trial of the Hong Kong media mogul and democracy activist Jimmy Lai, touching on the red lines that Xi spelled out in his meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden. That prompted Chinese officials to stand up and order British journalists out of the room before the premier finished his remarks. A bipartisan congressional panel is calling for tougher trade policies against China, citing national security and economic concerns. In a report released today, the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission recommended higher tariffs and stricter export controls. The report highlights China's alleged intellectual property theft and unfair trade practices, which it says have hurt American workers and businesses. Chinese officials deny these claims, calling the recommendations protectionist and damaging to global trade. The panel's report is expected to influence future trade legislation and U.S.-China relations. U.S. retailers, including Walmart, have raised an alarm over proposed new tariffs on imported goods as part of President-elect Donald Trump's 2024 campaign platform. Trump has vowed to increase tariffs to boost domestic manufacturing and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers. Retailers warn the measure could spike consumer prices ahead of the holiday season. The National Retail Federation predicts that the proposed 10% tariff could add $15 billion to American shopping costs. Supporters argue that the policy would create jobs and encourage local production, but critics say it could backfire by hurting low-income households.
The market started off the day with a bit of a concerned tone based on the geopolitical information going on between the Ukraine and Russia. The market had a little bit of a pullback early on, but quickly got past it, and we're now in positive territory. So I think the market digested that news flow from overseas and the potential concern there, and we've continued this post-election rally. It seems that the market's in the mood for.
Nvidia stock surged 4.9% today, helping lift U.S. stock markets to a positive close. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ indexes were up 0.4% and 1% respectively, driven by gains in the chip maker and other tech sectors. Nvidia, which has benefited from the boom in artificial intelligence, is expected to post record revenue this quarter. This week's rally came despite broader concerns about a slowing global economy. Now, after design flaws brought on delays in ramping up production of the new series of processors, investors are keen to know whether Nvidia will be able to deliver on the promised several $billion in Blackwell revenue in the January quarter. Overseas, Donald Trump and the world's richest man, Elon Musk, strengthen their growing friendship as the U.S. president-elect personally witnesses the latest test flight of SpaceX. Trump flew to South Texas to watch the launch of the Starship rocket, which is designed to eventually land astronauts on the moon and ferry crews to Mars. However, the flight didn't go perfectly, as the reusable booster failed to return to the launch pad as it had in previous tests last month. Instead, the booster splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico. Meanwhile, South Africa is set to lead the G20 presidency with an ambitious agenda that includes promoting inclusive growth and ensuring food security for all. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the priorities as he addressed world leaders at the G20 summit in Rio. Ramaphosa said South Africa would work to address the global food crisis by enabling sustainable agriculture and investment in infrastructure. The president's remarks come as the G20 prepares to confront the impact of climate change and inequality on the global economy. South Africa plans to push for policy changes that will facilitate wider access to nutrition and economic opportunity, particularly in African countries. Activists projected images with messages calling for environmental action from G20 members. During a peaceful protest, an environmental non-government organization displayed a large cardboard sign on Rio de Janeiro's seafront that read, "Tax billionaires, tax polluters, fix the climate," in conjunction with the G20 summit. They argue that it is unacceptable for the wealthy to accumulate riches and spread suffering globally, highlighting the issue of climate justice. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva emphasized to G20 leaders the need for international tax cooperation to tackle inequality, pushing for a global wealth tax on the ultra-rich. Now, as G20 leaders met at Rio's Modern Art Museum, discussions reflected a shifting global landscape with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump returning to power. Hundreds of farmers drove tractors into central London to protest a new tax on agricultural machinery. The policy, which will levy charges on diesel tractors, aims to reduce carbon emissions but has sparked outrage among farmers. Critics argue the tax will add significant cost to small farms, potentially driving them out of business. The National Farmers Union warns that the policy could also raise food prices across the UK. The government defends the measure, saying it is necessary to meet net zero emission targets by 2050. Officials have promised subsidies for sustainable farming equipment, but farmers say these fall short of actual needs. More news in business and economy in a moment. Stay tuned to BNC and follow the money. Welcome back. We have this just in. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he would nominate World Wrestling Entertainment co-founder Linda McMahon to lead the U.S. Education Department. More details of that in the coming hours. Now back to regular news. A record-breaking crypto rally born in the U.S. is leaving its mark on Asia, including a jump in the value of Bitcoin, held by Bhutan, to more than $1 billion, and a surge in digital asset trading volumes in South Korea. The crypto market, by some estimates, has climbed over $800 billion since Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. election on November 5, on hopes that his pledge to turn the U.S. into a global hub for the sector will spur a digital asset boom. The value of Bhutan's Bitcoin hoard has risen to over $200 million over $200 million to $1.1 billion since the U.S. vote. That's according to researcher Arkham Intelligence. Meanwhile, South Korea's dedicated exchange Upbit, whose share of worldwide crypto trading jumped 2 percentage points to 4.3% since November 5 to November 10. That's according to CC data. Bitcoin spiked to a record high above $94,000 on Tuesday as investors assessed how quickly Trump can make good on his promise of a friendly U.S. regulatory backdrop. He has also pledged to establish a strategic U.S. Bitcoin reserve, though some view that as an uphill task. Google has issued a strong rebuttal to reports that U.S. regulators may force the company to sell its Chrome browser as part of an antitrust effort to reduce its dominance in the search and advertising markets. The report published by the BBC claimed the Federal Trade Commission is considering the move to curb Google's market power. Industry critics say Google's control of Chrome gives it an unfair advantage in collecting user data and targeting ads. Google argues that such action would hurt consumers and innovation, insisting that Chrome helps users navigate the web safely and efficiently. Chinese tech giant Alibaba has announced plans to issue notes worth $4 billion to repay existing debt and fund business operations. The offering includes notes with maturities ranging from 3 to 40 years. This move is seen as part of Alibaba's strategy to streamline finances amid slowing growth and intense domestic regulatory scrutiny. The company reported a net profit of $3.4 billion last quarter. That's up 50% year on year. Analysts view the note offering as a sign of confidence in Alibaba's ability to weather global economic uncertainties and grow in the e-commerce and cloud computing sectors. Russian President Vladimir Putin will travel to India next week, his first trip abroad since the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Putin will attend the annual India-Russia summit, focusing on bilateral ties, defense, and energy cooperation. India, which has maintained neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine war, continues to import Russian oil and defense equipment despite Western pressure. Critics say the visit could strain India's relationship with the U.S. and EU, while supporters argue that it highlights autonomy. Putin's visit comes as global attention remains fixed on the war in Ukraine and Russia's deepening isolation from Western powers. Here at home, Terra Solar Philippines taps Energy China to help build what will be the world's largest solar and battery power plant. Under their contract, Energy China, which operates in over 140 countries, will handle procurement, design, manufacturing, logistics, and site delivery. Terra Solar chose Energy China due to its proven experience in executing large-scale renewable energy projects. The project will feature a 3,500 megawatt peak solar power plant, along with a 4,500 megawatt hour battery storage system. Located in central Luzon, the facility is expected to supply clean energy to over 2 million households. This massive project will play a crucial role in the Philippines' push towards sustainable energy, helping to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and promoting clean power across the country. The Philippine Central Bank is on course for more rate cuts. Bangko Sentral Governor Eli Remolona Jr. asserts they're still in the easing cycle, so rate reductions are still likely next month and even into 2025. He predicts further cuts of around 100 basis points in total. So far this year, the BSP has lowered interest rates by a cumulative 50 basis points as inflation slows. The August rate cut was the first in nearly 4 years. This policy shift signals a bold move to stimulate economic growth in the Philippines, making loans more affordable and providing relief to consumers and businesses. The country's balance of payments position swings into a deficit. In October, the Philippines recorded a $724 million deficit, marking a sharp contrast to the $1.5 billion surplus in the same month last year. However, for the first 10 months of the year, the cumulative balance of payments position registered a surplus of $4.4 billion, outpacing the $3.2 billion surplus recorded in 2023. The central bank attributes this to continued net inflows from personal remittances, trade-in services, and net foreign borrowings by the national government. This deficit in October does not signal a long-term trend, as the country's overall economic fundamentals remain strong, with resilient remittances and foreign investments helping to support a positive cumulative surplus for the year. Finally, before we go, if you think getting your little ones or even yourself to do chores is a daily uphill battle, you're not alone. But a new app in Sweden aims to fix this, to turn household tasks into a rewarding experience. The setup is simple. Users insert the chores into the Accord app. Other family members can then track progress and send a reminder if a task is not done on time. They can also show appreciation once a task is completed. Launched in September and developed by a group of engineering students, the app is designed to make household management more organized and even enjoyable. This innovation could have a big impact on the global business community, particularly in the tech and productivity sectors. Apps like this can drive demand for smarter, more interactive solutions that improve work-life balance and efficiency, but not just at home, but in the businesses too. As remote working and flexible hours increase, tools that help people stay organized will become even more valuable.
I was still living at home, and my dad was really nagging at me a lot to get my laundry, clean my room and stuff like that. And he knew I had just started programming at KTH. So finally one day he basically had enough and said, like, why don't you just program an app so I don't have to nag at you all the time about getting your laundry. And so Accord was our sort of answer to achieving family harmony and tackling these problems that like almost every family face on a daily basis.
And that is it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News channel, always on top.